Hello, my creatives. We are going to be doing an activity today where we're going to explore abstraction inspired by some work from Georgia O'Keeffe. So, all of these activities can be found in your Georgia O'Keeffe Modern Art Explorer Kit. Today, we're going to really focus on activity 4. And for this activity, you are going to need all the supplies that you see here. So, for this activity, we're going to use every single thing in the art kit and just really explore and have fun. So, if you have some tissue papers left, we'll use those. Your watercolor crayons, your watercolors, and then grab your round brush and your flat brush. There are always two things you need that are not included in your kit, and that is some water. So we definitely need a tub or a cup of water just off to the side so that we can activate our paint colors and our tissue. And then I also would recommend grabbing some masking tape. So the masking tape is important so that we can actually secure the paper and really have fun moving and adding lines and drawing color. So see if you have those. If you don't have masking tape, not a big deal. We can use other things or we can figure out different ways to hold it down, but it's okay if you don't have that. That's just nice to have. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move all of these materials off to the side, and we're going to take a little bit of time and actually look at this artwork and talk about what we're going to do. We're going to get inspired, we're going to ask some questions, and then we're going to dive into creating. So, before we do that too, I always talk about surface. So on the other videos, want to make sure that the surface that you have is something you can easily wipe off. It's okay to get paint on. Work with your parents, make sure you're in a good space to paint. If you need some ideas on how to create a surface, I just use baking pans. This is really easy. You can take the paper that you're using, you can put it in here, no problem at all. And this way everything's contained and easily cleaned. So just make sure you have a good surface. Also with paper, thinking about that, for this activity, you can use your large pieces of paper, or you can do in a half, like in all the other activities, we've actually folded the paper that's in your kit and just made two pieces out of one. For scale, I'm gonna keep to that size, but you're free to explore any size you want because this is a large, big abstraction and either size will work good. So knowing that we are going to start here, let's think about this painting and let's start to ask some questions about it. So first, I want you all to take a look at how Georgia explored watercolor and how she simplified the world around her. So right here we see some shapes and some color. That bold color is really coming out to us. I want you just to take a little moment here. This is a work by Georgia O'Keeffe. This is called Evening Star number 5. It is a watercolor on paper. And you can see this artwork at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So let's take a look there. Now, I want to just start off by asking some questions. So I want you to answer these on your own and talk about what does this artwork remind you of and why. Then I want you to think about how did Georgia use color? What is exciting about this artwork? And then let's talk about what does simple mean to you? What do you think simple means? And then think about how do you think this artwork was made? So these are all great questions. This keeps us curious. This keeps us open-minded as we start to explore this on our own. We are going to use this as an inspiration, but I always like to remind you, your work does not have to look exactly like this. This is just really an inspiration point. It just is to inspire you. Maybe you want to change the colors. Maybe you do different shapes. That is all okay. The most important thing is that you're creating. And so whatever way you want to, you do. You just have fun and play with it. But with this, we're going to keep this focus. We're going to stay inspired here. I'm going to actually just move this up here so I can still see it as I work. But I'm going to actually start to bring all my materials into view for you. So I talked about using this as a tray, and I'm just going to set this off to the side. First, we need to get our masking tape. Now, if you don't have masking tape, you're just gonna put it in a tray or try to secure your paper somehow. I always like to talk about masking the paper just because it adds a really nice frame, and it also helps us keep it really secure. So just take half your tape, put it here. We're gonna make a rectangle shape. My question to you is, how do we know that this is a rectangle? How many sides? What makes this a rectangle to you? And then we're gonna go ahead and just put some more tape here. And finally, I have this last side. All right, and then we're gonna just pull this up. You can see that there's still tape here on this side so that we can actually secure it to this tray. And this is the fun part. You're just gonna push it down really fast and kind of smash it all the way around. Make sure the tape is super secure, and we are ready. We have our canvas and we are ready to go. So I'm gonna take a look at this again. We have worked through some of these materials in different art workshops, but what is really fun here is that these transfer really fun colors. And I'm gonna show you how to use each one just for the sake of the demo. But you could start to think about, oh, here I could actually create a whole pattern using these tissue papers. So that's one thing that we can do. And so I'm gonna start with those, and then we're gonna explore some different textures and some different ways to use this thinking about this. So there is a lot of color. There's a lot of bold color. So what I'm gonna start to think about is, how can I get that bold color? So I'm just gonna start by getting my whole paper wet. So I'm just gonna do this side here. Again, I'm just using water. I'm using my flat brush. And then I'm gonna just explore these color tissues. And again, I'm inspired by this. Doesn't have to look exactly like it, but I'm just gonna kind of explore like what happens when I start to like overlap these and I make some circles with them. So this is my first attempt. So, and then I'm going to actually dip my flat brush in water again, and I'm gonna dab and really help this color transfer. So sometimes you have to just put your finger there. Now, as you know, in our other activity where we use these, there's all kinds of different ways to do this. So right now I got this wet, I applied them, and then I'm adding more water, and I'm really looking for that water transfer. So another thing that we can do too is we can start to think about, should I just use the watercolors? Could I just get some of these textures here? So I'm gonna let these sit here. I'm just gonna take them off in a minute. I'm gonna let them stay as long as possible so that I get as much transfer. And I'm gonna put as much water as I can on there and just see what happens. So I'm gonna let that just do its thing. While that's doing that, I'm gonna start to think about the blue over here, this area right here. I'm thinking about, okay, maybe I can use these watercolors. Now you could do anything here, whatever you think, you just go for it. I just want to show you some different techniques and things to think through. So I'm getting my flat brush out. And I'm gonna do this really dark blue. As always, to activate these colors, you're gonna just take a little bit of water before you start. You're gonna get those wet, and then you're gonna get your brush wet again, and you're just gonna kind of wiggle the brush in and get as much color on that brush. Now this is nice and clean. You don't have to be this clean. If you're inspired and you're ready to go, just grab the paint, just start painting, just do whatever you need to. That's what's important. And so, yeah, you don't have to be this. I'm just showing you different ways to get these activated. If you're just wanting to go fast, then go fast. If you want to like blend colors and just start moving, we can do that. So I'm doing this. The one thing here is that I'm gonna add a lot of water here to like really see if I can make this create some movement. So the more water, what happens when I add more water to this is the paint getting more, what's happening? I'll just ask you, you answer that for me. You tell me what's happening. And again, at this point, you might have enough instruction and you're just wanting to go and paint, and that's fine too. So we have some stuff there. And so I'm going to let that dry. I also just want to make sure I'm going to get some color saturation here. And how you can do that is you can just really get that focus on the blue, and then you can dab and just really add that color here and see what happens with the saturation. And when I say saturation, I'm just saying how deep is that color? Is it really blue? Is it light blue? And it's just how much color is actually on there. And the water will actually take down some of the color. And so I'm just trying to really add as much as I can here and see what I can do. All right, so I have some watercolor here. I'm gonna actually now use a different material. And I'm doing this just for the demo sake so you can get an idea of how you can use all these different materials. This is something new. I haven't shown you this yet. Maybe you've already done it. You discovered this on your own. But one thing that you can do with your watercolor crayons is, this is my water. It's a little murky, but you can take your watercolor crayon and just kind of like put it in the water and let it sit for just a bit. And then what we're going to do is we can actually use that watercolor crayon on the bottom here. So I'm going to just use that watercolor crayon here to see if I can get a really deep dark blue. So I have it kind of hanging out in the water, get my hands dirty. I get this, it's really wet at this point. And then I'm thinking about this blue. Now that you can actually kind of use this as a paintbrush and get it wet each time you use it. And look at what starts to happen. You get this really fun color transfer. So again, I'm using this like a paintbrush. It's just the crayon. I'm dipping it in the water. I'm using it on its side. I'm pushing down and I'm creating a line, and I'm getting this really nice saturated color. And this was dry. So imagine if we use this flat brush and we start to maybe draw these lines. So at that point, we're getting even more color. We're getting a little bit more here. So a fun new way to use your crayons. The other thing, and I'm just going to try this, but I didn't get that wet before. I could get this wet. And I could take that watercolor crayon that, by the way, is still in the water. Just really letting that water get to it. You don't want to keep them too long. Don't forget about them, but it just helps with this. And then I'm going to do the watercolor on top of the water that I just put on the paper. I'm just going to see what happens here. So I'm not using it flat. I'm just really using the tip of it. This one, I kind of took my finger and I really kind of pushed it in. So you can get some really, really deep colors there. All right, so fun things. Now, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and take off these tissues now and kind of just see what happens. I get a really nice color transfer. I've done this before, but I love to kind of like really get these all in my hand, and I like to just maybe dab all of the color transfers, trying to keep some white lines, but it's all right if they kind of like this open paper here with the colors. But yeah, so here you have 3 different materials doing 3 different sections of this inspiration by Georgia. So at this point, I'm gonna say I'm done. There's a lot of more stuff I can do. I mean, maybe I'll just quickly show you how you can maybe use the crayon on top of the transfer. So you could get a red like this, and we're gonna just kind of put it in the water, leave it in there for a bit, get it activated, and then we could really get that red saturation that we're seeing. And we can really start to create a shape here. You can see I'm starting to create a circle. Now, what's really fun at this point is there's a lot of water on this. You can see as I move this crayon around, the water, the colored water kind of moves with it. And so these are really fun to use, I think, wet, especially when it's already wet, just because you get such a bold color. And speaking of bold color, I'm going to grab the orange and just do that same thing. I'm going to start to like really bring in this circular pattern here. So at this point, I'm creating shapes. Now, in this, I want to just show you when you bring the red and the orange together, what happens. And you can even kind of like blend these together. But you can also just start to use these as your actual, like a paintbrush. So you're just dipping these in water and then you're drawing with them. And it creates some really pretty things. Now, one quick thing is that there's been a lot of water that pulled up here. I wasn't really expecting that. And so I'm just using my hands. And you can even just move this water around. Like maybe we start to maybe use a little bit of gravity. So we're just going to move it up and pick it up and go around here and just kind of move that water with it. Ooh, I like what's happening there. And you know what? It's actually interesting. I kind of wish that would have gone over there, but it doesn't have to look exactly like this. I'm just liking how all these colors are really coming together. Now, if you really want to work with your hands at this point, you can. I think that this could be a nice way to kind of blend some of these, create the movement. I love how this is happening here. So again, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to grab all of my things all nice and I want you to see the artwork that we were inspired by. I want to just kind of recap what we did. We were able to use all of our materials to do this. And this does not have to be done. Just like we've talked about in other watercolors, is you could actually let this dry and then come back to it. But there are several evening stars from Georgia O'Keeffe. It could be really fun to actually go online. The Georgia O'Keeffe Museum has a majority of their collection, actually I think the entire collection, on their website, and you could go through and actually find some more of these stars. And I think that these are so fun to recreate on your own. It's simple abstraction. We've simplified this, but we've been able to explore colors and textures. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing all your work. Please have your parents share it on our Instagram, and I hope you enjoyed the kit, and looking forward to all of the amazing things you create. So keep using all your watercolors, your watercolor crayons. You have paper to create for a really long time. So enjoy it all. Thank you so much.